Good morning. It's Lisa with Lisa Heal Yourself. Today we are walking and talking again, and we are going to talk about fear, vulnerability, everything actually that's going on in the world today. We're living in a time in the world when globally, across the world, there's a lot of fear. Okay, we all know why. We all know there's a pandemic, and we all know that it's creating a lot of fear and tension within us as a human species. And I want to explore our responsibility to that fear, why we feel so vulnerable, why we're not safe, and what we can do about it. Fear comes when we don't feel safe, period. Our nervous system attempts to keep us safe at all times. And so when it scans dangers in the environment or in our lives, real or imagined, it takes action, goes into fight or flight, and we experience fear. And when we're experiencing fear, we make fear-driven decisions. We're doing fear-driven behaviors. Okay, so right now what's happening around the world, no matter what side of the fence you are on, fear is driving a lot of fear-based reactions and a lot of fear-based decisions that are actually bringing to light our vulnerabilities in politics, in the world, the ecosystem, the planet, our relationships with each other and other countries, and also how healthy we are as human beings and whether we're able and capable to survive viruses. So all of this is coming up, and we're feeling quite vulnerable as a species and as a society. We're vulnerable because we're realizing a crisis that's already been brewing for a long time. Only a lot of people didn't know it because a lot of people aren't in these worlds. They're not living in these worlds. And so it's bringing to light a lot of things that have been under the surface, under the current for a while, right? Global warming, political tensions. But mostly what becomes apparent is our health, right? Cancer's been rising, autism's been rising, heart disease been rising, autoimmune diseases on the rise. We have so many diseases on the rise that have been under the surface, and we've been able to stay in our box, in our container, and believe that somehow these things are all genetic or they're randomly happening to us, and we're victims. We're victims of all of these things, and there's not much we can do. But right now what's happening is this global pandemic is shining a light on how vulnerable our human health is and how disconnected from our bodies, our planet, our environment, and our whole world. Even our relationships with each other have been disconnected. And there's a lot of fracturing happening right now. There's a lot of things going on in the world that this is just illuminating. And suddenly people are feeling and thinking that they're more vulnerable, and they're reacting and responding out of fear because something that they knew was already true, that, we're living disconnected from our environment, from our food system, from our world, from our bodies, our relationships, all of these things that are happening. And now suddenly the whole world is shining a flashlight on these issues. It's making us scared, and it's making us react in fear. Okay, so for people who have survived major crises, major pandemics, major wars, major health crises, for people who have survived traumas and overcome, you will know that you ultimately have to come to the realization that you and you alone are 100% responsible for your health, for your decisions, for your actions, for your reactions, and for this situation. And a lot of people will use victim thinking for a long time. This happened to me. I'm a victim. This was a circumstance. This was an event. This was something that happened. We deflect blame, and rightly so. We say this wasn't our fault. This happened to us. But the people who really, overcome and transform and survive and thrive realize that everything that's happening to you, you need to take responsibility for. You need to step up and say, I had a part in this. And the reason why this pandemic, I understand this is actually happening. So I'm not denying this is actually happening and that you're truly not at fault. But we as a human species are at fault. We need to step up and take responsibility for this. If our immune systems were stronger, if we were more connected to our natural environments, if our bodies could handle these viruses, we would be able to survive them, we would be able to adapt, and we would be able to carry on. But this is a long time coming, right? Disease has been slowly building in us for a long time. Children's diseases are up, middle-aged diseases are up, weight is up, right? All these diseases are up. We're spraying chemical crops all over everything we eat. We're killing our connection to our natural biome and actually the dirt and the soil in which human life is founded. We are taking medications, we're taking supplements, we are using single and sometimes toxic solutions, single solutions to a very complex problem, that we are not taking care of the world, we're not taking care of our soil, we're not taking care of our animals and more plants, we're not taking care of our bodies, our own human stress. Look how stressed we are as a human species. Look how toxic the human species are, and even unborn fetuses that come out, they're testing so positive for all these chemicals in the human body. It's just rampant across the world. We shell out our health to other people. We put our health in the care of doctors, surgeons, therapists around the world, and we're not taking responsibility for ourselves. We're not taking responsibility for our world, for our bodies. And that's why this is actually a good thing, that this is shining a flashlight on all of this, because this has been under the surface for a long time. People have largely been ignoring these things that they can no longer ignore, right? It's rising to the top. And as it rises, it creates fear and reaction-based thinking and defensive mechanisms. I mean, all this is true of anything. Anytime something rises that we wish to avoid or persist or deny or turn away from. Over the last 20, 30 years, species are dying at an incredible rate, from plant species to organisms, microorganisms. Our animals are endangered species. They're dying. Our plants, our ecosystem, it's all dying. Chronic health conditions and mental health conditions, the explosion of them over the last 20 years. Heart disease, cancer, all of these are up. We cannot turn a blind eye and say that we're not responsible for this. We are responsible as human beings for this happening. We have to take responsibility, and this is a good enough time as any, when this global crisis has come to the world, to shine a flashlight on the fact that we need to take responsibility. We cannot blame this on a virus. We cannot blame this on a single strain SARS virus. We cannot blame this on too much carbon dioxide in the air. We must take responsibility for what we're doing to ourselves and our species and our planet. We must stop and figure out why we are so vulnerable as a species. What are we doing to the planet, and how can we restore it? How do we restore our own health? How do we restore our own bodies, our own health, our own immune systems, so that we are capable of surviving viruses, which we have over millions of years of evolutionary history to get where we are today, right? This is not simply because of a virus that's a little too complicated or a strain. No. We survived much worse than this. Much worse than this in history. We have become more vulnerable as ever. And as we wake up to this reality and this fact, we become more scared. And so our choices become driven out of fear, and we look to hand off these responsibilities to other people. You take care of me. You save me. You tell me what to do, right? It's time that we wake up and say, what can I do? I want to take responsibility for my life, for my health, for my body, right? For my world, for my relationship to the earth. When we farm out our health to an industry which is there to make money, is not working for your best interests. When we farm out our health and our family's health to somebody else, to a business, to a corporation, right? We are doing the wrong thing. That is why we're all feeling so scared and vulnerable. We're waking up slowly, we're seeing this, and we're realizing maybe I should take responsibility for this myself. I am not a political person. I've never been interested in politics, but I am very, very concerned as to what we as human beings are doing on this world. Right? We are dumping, and we're getting grants. The government is supporting. I mean, this is being supported all over the world, dumping glyphosate and chemicals all over the very crops that we eat and ingest into our body, the same chemicals that are being known to cause widespread disease. We did it with fossil fuels, the metals and the runoff from these fuels. And look at what we're doing with plastics, the explosion of plastics and the damage that we're doing to our oceans. You know, just in 20 years, look at the exponential rate of damage to Mother Earth, okay? And look at the companies, the corporations that are supporting this, that are making this happen, allowing this to happen and marketing to you as somehow this food is great and healthy for your body. It says for a healthy heart breakfast on the cereal box when these products have been sprayed by some of the worst chemicals known to man. This is not health. This is not who we can trust. We need to wake up and take responsibility for what we are putting in our own body first and foremost. And then how do we change the world? How do we change this? How do we change a generation, you know, multi-generations that have gone wrong, that have put us in this vulnerable position? Now, I know this sounds scary. I'm not here to scare anyone. This is reality. We first always, with any crisis that you go through, you must face an uncomfortable reality, okay? It's not to scare you more. It's to have people wake up and say, I see it. It's uncomfortable. I don't want to look there. I don't want to look at our polluted oceans. I don't want to look at all these plant-based, chemically grown meats that they're now spending billions of dollars on, and they're going to try to feed us as a way to solve factory farming problems. We need to be looking at regenerative agriculture. We need to be looking at these animals that we need for our human nutrition, you know, that are grass-fed, that we're using regenerative agriculture practices. We're not spraying. It's not one bad thing versus another bad thing. Factory farming versus chemical produced fake meat. Okay, this is not the decision. We get micro-focused on decisions that aren't. You pit one bad thing against each other, people don't know what to decide because they're both bad, right? It's the same situation we're in right now with the pandemic. It's like nobody wants to catch a virus that could harm you, and nobody wants to inject something that they don't understand into their body. When you're asking people to choose between two negative things, of course there's fear. Of course people don't know what to do. Of course there's division. Of course there's a lot of arguments on both sides because we asked a poor question. When we ask poor questions, we get poor, irrational, fear-based reactions and answers. The question isn't, do I want to, get this virus, or do I want to put this in my body that is showing that it's potentially harmful and damaging and we have no long-term studies on? It's the wrong question. We need to start asking better questions. We can't pit two bad questions against each other and expect to get a reasonable, rational answer based in science. And so, this is scary to look at. These kinds of facts, these GMO seeds that can withstand 3 to 5 almost strains of chemical toxins that are going to go directly into your body, your children's body, your grandchildren's body. The fake meat that we're producing in a lab, we have no idea what that is going to do to the human cell and human biology. The medications and the new technology that is now going into 90% of the population's body globally across the world, that has been ushered through in an emergency response, that we have absolutely no idea of how this will play out 5 years, 10 years, generationally, and how the continuation of this technology and injecting these kinds of medications into our system, we have no idea what that is going to do to the human species. And this is exploding right now across planet Earth. And it is better to open our eyes and take responsibility than it is to shut them and think, I just want someone to take care of me. I want someone else to solve this problem. And I need to put my head down and pretend it's not happening because I want someone to tell me that it's okay and that all this is going to be okay and that all this is going to be safe, and believe them. But these are the same corporations who are making billions of dollars, right? Who have a record and a history of causing serious harm to a lot of people, not just in the pharmaceutical industry, but in the food industry and across the board to our planets. So the people and the corporations that are standing to gain power and money are not the place that we want to be putting our faith in at a crisis point. Now, does that mean I want to scare you and make you feel isolated, make you feel alone, and make you feel that you can trust nobody? No, of course not. But the reality is that we need to wake up and take responsibility for what we're doing to human health and planet Earth. And this is a waking up point. This is a tipping point. This is a tipping point for human beings. We need to come together. First division must stop. We need to come together as a species. And this is going to take some of the greatest minds out there, the greatest minds coming up, to be able to chart a new future for this soup, this chemical, toxic, and problematic soup that we have find ourselves in 100, 200 years from where we were 100 to 200 years ago is so incredibly fast and exponentially bad in all directions, and it's going to take some of the greatest minds of our time to how do we solve this, work with our own bodies, work with the ecosystem, work with the planet Earth. How do we move forward and create a future that really leaves human beings in a species that are strong, that are capable, that have amazing immune systems, that are able to thrive and survive and continue on in this planet? Right? We don't want to be crippled and weak as a species. Okay, so what do we do? Well, what do we do with chronic health? Let's just take a look. When you have a chronic health condition, this means it's become chronic. So what was meant to be acute, what was meant to be a reaction, like say you break your leg, you have an acute pain reaction, you have acute swelling, all of these things happening at the site of the injury. Your body has this acute inflammatory response, and it reacts. And it sends everything that it needs to send to that bone to heal. It sends everything there to stop the swelling. This system that we have in place, when it's acute in nature, when our fear is acute in nature, when our inflammatory response system is acute in nature, it actually heals the bone, it heals the injury, it heals everything, it heals the cold, it heals the virus, it heals the bacterial infection, it heals. And then we're stronger because of that. Okay, so it is meant, these signals are meant to help. But when they go from acute to chronic, it's like it's wearing us down every day. We feel the pain signals, we feel the bone, we feel the infection, we feel whatever's there. We focus on the site, sending more signals there, more acute inflammatory response signals, and the body can't keep up. And over time, the body it wears down its own defenses and its own systems to be able to heal that site, because it's become chronic over time. And anything chronic over time starts to lose its power, its effectiveness. So now your body's ability to be effective at healing that site over time, with the new inflammation and the new chronic focus that we keep giving to it, or if we keep re-injuring the same spot, it becomes less and less effective at doing this. And this is one of the things that leads to chronic illness. Same thing is if you have your fight or flight system and you're walking along and a bear jumps out at you, or a burglar jumps out at you, or somebody jumps out at you in a back alley, your system, your fight or flight system, your reticular activating system is going to go into overdrive, and it's going to cause you to run. Okay, this running is going to save your life. This quick reaction time, this acute response is going to save your life, okay? This fear response. But when it's chronic, when you continue to be in that dark alley, continuing with nobody jumping out at you, but your system acting like it is over time, over days, over weeks, over years, and you're living in a state of chronic fear and chronic anxiety, your system, when it finally does, the bear finally does jump out, your system is weakened. So it cannot just send you into this quick burst of a sprint where you can get away, because you've been living in it for so long that by the time the actual event happens, you're impaired, you're slower, your defenses, everything is worn out, right? It's like you've been running a marathon, and you're exhausted by the time you actually need it to work. So this is why chronic stress is such a problem. So right now, I would say everybody on planet Earth is most of us are living in a state of chronic fear, driven by this pandemic. And what do I mean by that? It's nobody's fault. But between the media, where we hear the case counts every day, the death counts and the case counts, 200 have died, or 10 have died, or 10 got it, 14 got it. Like, this is never going away. Viruses never go away. So just to hear this continual ticker, over a few weeks, over a few months is okay. That's an acute, right, response where we're washing our hands, we're staying indoors, we're avoiding people, we're wearing a mask, we're just taking care, and we're ready to fight a disease when it comes, because we're taking care of ourselves, we're getting extra sleep, we're improving our nutrition, we're washing our hands, we're ready if we do catch a virus. Okay, but when we hear this long term, over months and now years, it starts to wear on us. Right? We're continually in a state of fight or flight. Our reticular activating system is continually activated, and we're worn down. And when we're in this state of constant stress, constant fear, no matter whether it's from chronic illness or chronic stress, we make poor decisions. You cannot make a good decision when you are in a state of stress or any kind of a chronic stress or chronic, and you might even think, well, I'm not really stressed, but chronically you're worried, right? And then the worries about what will happen if you do or don't do what we're being asked to do in society right now. What are the implications of that? And the fear on both sides right now is turning chronic as opposed to acute. So it's signaling danger in a chronic way now rather than an acute way. And everybody's system is taxed. It's tired. It's overloaded. It's worn down. And so when we're in this state, we never, ever, ever make good decisions. And we're always in a reactive mode. All our decisions come from reacting, right? When we react to a fight or flight system, whether it's fight, flight, or freeze, we're always reacting, right? We're never just sitting, contemplating. Our healthy systems, our rest, digest, and impair go away, but also so do our creative pathways. So any kind of creative decision-making or brainstorming or, creative thinking on a problem like this gets shut down when we're in chronic stress, when we are in chronic overload of a problem. We get our creative abilities to solve this problem get shut down. That's why the same people looking at a problem chronically over years and years and years can never come to a really good creative decision because they're worn down about it. So we need these acute bursts, but we definitely don't want anything chronic. And right now in the whole world, we're all in a chronic state of stress over what's going on in the world. And it's impairing our ability as human beings to sit, to contemplate, to work collaboratively and cooperatively, to brainstorm, to think outside the box and come up with creative ways. Again, we don't want to pit two bad decisions against each other. So we need creativity, and the chronic stress is getting in the way of collaborative and creative thinking. So the very, very, very first thing that you ever need to do when we're in a chronic situation, when you have a chronic health crisis, or when you are in any kind of a trauma situation, or when you're in this global pandemic, is get your own nervous system working properly. Take it out of fight or flight. We need to use the practices, and if you don't know what they are, I have lots of videos on how to get out of fight or flight. Go watch those. I have many videos, how to get out of fight or flight. So we need to first get out of fight or flight. We need to breathe. We need to calm our system. We need to get from the sympathetic response to the parasympathetic response. And then we need to take responsibility for our own lives. Start with your nutrition. We start with your sleep. We start with your hydration. We start with getting the chemicals out of your life, right? We first, always, when a plane's going down, you put the oxygen mask on yourself first. Start with you and your family. Eliminate all the toxic chemicals. Get more sleep. Increase your nutrients and your vitamins and your minerals that are going to make your immune system working amazingly. Grow your microbiome. We want to focus on things that are going to help us when we come into contact with viruses. We're going to be strong. We have enough reserves. We have good sleep. Our immune system's working properly. We're going to be able to fight it and survive and thrive. We want to really look at these factors. You cannot underestimate the basics of foundational health. And then how can you change your world? Where can you put your money? Where can you put your money? Are you going to buy factory farm products? Are you going to buy fake meat? Are you going to buy GMO seeds, sprayed conventional crops? Or are we going to put it into regenerative agriculture? Right? Are we going to put it into those local farms? Are we going to spend our dollar to grow what we want to see grow in the world? What are our choices at home? How can we improve our home, our lifestyle, the health of ourselves and our children? How can we improve our relationships, the connection in our lives? How can we improve the quality of our sleep? How can we improve what we do with our time? Are we scrolling on the internet? Are we scrolling the news? Are we allowing ourselves to live in stress? Or are we meditating? Are we going out in nature? Are we going for calming walks? Are we laughing with friends and family? What are we doing to boost our own health and vitality and happiness and immune systems? So it really does start with you. We all need to lead by example. How do we lead by example? A, we get out of fear. We start the creative brainstorming process. We get ourselves healthy. We practice healthy lifestyle principles, real healthy lifestyle principles. Not like, oh yes, we think we're doing all the right things. We're kind of getting sleep. We might be drinking a lot of water, but it's, not the right type of water. It's not filtered. We're eating vegetables, but we're just going to ignore the fact that they're sprayed. Yes, we're eating our healthy, we're eating good foods. We're cooking from home. We're eating good meats, but yeah, it's been, those animals have been ingested with crops eating that are sprayed and they're given antibiotics and hormones. But we're going to look the other way because, yeah, we're doing our part. We're eating healthy. Like, we have to take a brutal, honest look at how we are contributing to what's happening in the world, to our planet, and to our health, the health of our family, and the health of our children. Really, you have to get clear on that. And it's not to scare you. It is not to create more fear. It's to empower you. There is so much that you can do, from the products that you use in the home, to the foods that you buy, to the sleep that you get, to the love that you feel and give, and the smiles and the joy that you create. There is so much that we can do to spread goodness, to spread vitality, to spread love, to spread health in this world. Fear is what's causing this rampant pandemic to continue. We are going to come into contact with viruses. We're going to come into contact with many things throughout our journeys, but let's not let them be man-made, right? Let's limit the toxins, the chemicals. Let's put our dollar where it matters. Let's spend our energy where it matters. Once we get out of fight or flight, once we slow our systems down, we can start to brainstorm. We can start to think and be creative and find solutions that are win-win as opposed to lose-lose. We've been asking a lot of bad questions. We've been pitting a lot of lose-lose scenarios against each other. We've been pitting something bad against something worse. Right? When we stop, when we get out of fear, when we settle our systems, right? When we stop people pleasing, when we stop just trying to go with the status quo, when we wake up, when we look around and we're willing to take full responsibility for the fact that we as human beings have put ourselves in this crisis over the last 50 to 100 years. We've gotten ourselves right to this moment of this tipping point. And until we take responsibility for it and change based on 100% responsibility and take new actions going forward, new actions that are going to help change the future and shape the future of the world for better, then the whole world can change. If everybody does it, we can all move forward. We can start to create, rather than censor information, we can start to create, ask questions, ask better questions. How can we pit a good solution against a better solution rather than a bad solution against a worse one? We have to open conversations. We have to open dialogue. We have to get back to a time when things were uncensored. We can't continue to censor things that go against the status quo. We have to allow questions on all sides. That is how, when we are in a calm state, we can collaborate, we can cooperate, we can brainstorm, we can be creative, we can start to ask better questions, and we can start to pit good solutions against better solutions, against amazing solutions, against solutions that really do truly change the shape of the future. We start to be able to create a future for our children, of generations behind us, where we're not leaving a trail of toxic chemicals, where we're not leaving devastation. We have some of the greatest minds in human history walking planet Earth today. And we need questions to be asked. We need a calm, centered nervous system first. A healthy, vital body full of fresh nutrients from the earth that aren't sprayed. Some good, amazing sleep. High quality relationships. A purpose-driven life in order to make these changes. But we can make them. We can make them. Really opening your eyes, taking a good look at where we are and why we're in this position, and taking full responsibility. Then starting to ask better questions. What can I do? How can I improve my health? How can I improve my family's health? How can I improve my immune system? How can I improve my relationships? How can I improve my sleep? How can I improve the situations, these big problems going on in the world? When we look at the depletion of the soils, we say, well, what can we do? These are the questions we need to start asking. We don't throw our hands up in the air and say, there's nothing I can do. Of course there's something you can do. Do you have land? Can you grow a garden? Can you start to connect to your own food better? Can you start to spend your dollar where it matters? Can you start to lead by example? There's always things that we can do. So get calm first, get centered, meditate, breathe. Really get out of fight or flight. And then when you are, start to brainstorm, take action. Take action in a positive way that's gonna empower you, make your life and your family's life better, that's gonna make humanity better as a whole moving forward. It's not enough to say what is good for me in this moment, what feels right for me in this moment. It's like, what is right for humanity? What is right for my children? What is right for my grandchildren? What is right moving forward for the generations behind me? We cannot leave them this mess. We cannot leave them this mess. Okay? We've inherited a mess and we need to clean it up because we're at a tipping point. The flashlight is being shined brightly on a problem that we can no longer ignore. We are vulnerable and living in fear because we've allowed ourselves to get in this position. It's time to take our power back. It's time to take responsibility, and it's time to ask better questions, create better solutions, and move to a future that's sustainable and healthy and whole for all of us. So I hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, and I will see you in the next one.